Netherlands, country located in northwestern Europe, also known as Holland. Netherlands means low-lying country. The name Holland, from houtland, or wooded land, was originally given to one of the medieval cores of what later became the modern state and is still used for two of its 12 provinces, Noord-Holland and Zuid-Holland. A parliamentary democracy under a constitutional monarch, the kingdom includes its former colonies in the Lesser Antilles, Aruba, Bonaire, Curaçao, Saba, St. Eustatius, and Sint Maarten. The capital is Amsterdam and the seat of government The Hague. Netherlands. Explore Holland's population, waterways, and vast tulip crossbreeding and cultivation program. The country is indeed low-lying and remarkably flat, with large expanses of lakes, rivers, and canals. Some 2,500 square miles, 6,500 square kilometers, of the Netherlands consist of reclaimed land, the result of a process of careful water management dating back to medieval times. Along the coasts, land was reclaimed from the sea, and, in the interior, lakes and marshes were drained, especially alongside the many rivers. All this new land was turned into polders, usually surrounded by dikes. Initially, manpower and horsepower were used to drain the land, but they were later replaced by windmills, such as the mill network at Kinderdijk, now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The largest water control schemes were carried out in the second half of the 19th century and in the 20th century, when steam pumps and, later, electric or diesel pumps came into use. Explore Amsterdam's numerous canals, canal houses, the city centre, the Drug Design Collective, and the city's museum district with the iconic Museum van Loon. Explore Amsterdam's numerous canals, canal houses, the city centre, the Drug Design Collective, and the city's museum district with the iconic Museum van Loon. See all videos for this article. Despite government-encouraged emigration after World War II, which prompted some 500,000 persons to leave the country, the Netherlands is today one of the world's most densely populated countries. Although the population as a whole is graying rapidly, with a high percentage over age 65, Amsterdam has remained one of the liveliest centers of international youth culture. There, perhaps more than anywhere else in the country, the Dutch tradition of social tolerance is readily encountered. Prostitution, soft drug, marijuana and hashish use, and euthanasia are all legal but carefully regulated in the Netherlands, which was also the first country to legalize same-sex marriage. This relative independence of outlook was evident as early as the 16th and 17th centuries, when the Dutch rejected monarchical controls and took a relatively enlightened view of other cultures, especially when they brought wealth and capital to the country's trading centers. In that period, Dutch merchant ships sailed the world and helped lay the foundations of a great trading country characterized by a vigorous spirit of enterprise. In later centuries, the Netherlands continued to have one of the most advanced economies in the world, despite the country's modest size. The Dutch economy is open and generally internationalist in outlook. With Belgium and Luxembourg, the Netherlands is a member of the Benelux Economic Union, which in the 1950s and 1960s served as a model for the larger European Economic Community, EEC, now embedded in the European Union, EU, of which the Benelux countries are members. The Netherlands is also a member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, and it plays host to a number of international organizations, especially in the legal sector, such as the International Court of Justice. The Dutch reputation for tolerance was tested in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, when an increase in immigration from non-European Union countries and a populist turn in politics resulted in growing nationalism and even xenophobia, marked by two race-related political assassinations, in 2002 and 2004, and the government's requirement that immigrants pass an expensive integration test before they enter the country. Land. Relief. The Netherlands is bounded by the North Sea to the north and west, Germany to the east, and Belgium to the south. If the Netherlands were to lose the protection of its dunes and dikes, the most densely populated part of the country would be inundated, largely by the sea but also in part by the rivers. This highly developed part of the Netherlands, which generally does not lie higher than about 3 feet, 1 meter, above sea level, covers more than half the total area of the country. About half of this area, more than 1/4 of the total area of the country, actually lies below sea level. The lower area consists mainly of polders, where the landscape not only lies at a very low elevation but is also very flat in appearance. On such land, building is possible only on rafts or after concrete piles, sometimes as long as 65 feet, 20 meters, have been driven into the silt layer. In the other, higher area, the layers of sand and gravel in the eastern part of the country were pushed sideways and upward in some places by ice tongues of the solid glacial stage, forming elongated ridges that may reach a height of more than 330 feet, 100 meters, and are the principal feature of the Hoge Park Velje National Park. The only part of the country where elevations exceed 350 feet, 105 meters, is the border zone of the Ardennes. The Netherlands' highest point, the Valserberg, in the extreme southeastern corner, rises to 1,053 feet, 321 meters. Soils. In the late Pleistocene epoch, from about 126,000 to 11,700 years ago, the Scandinavian ice sheet covered the northern half of the Netherlands. After this period, a large area in the north of what is now the Netherlands was left covered by moraine, glacial accumulation of earth and rock debris. In the center and south, the Rhine and Maas rivers unloaded thick layers of silt and gravel transported from the European mountain chains. Later, during the Holocene epoch, i.e., the past 11,700 years, clay was deposited in the sheltered lagoons behind the coastal dunes, and peat soil often subsequently developed in these areas. If the peat soil was washed away by the sea or dug away by humans, for the production of fuel and salt, lakes were created. Many of these were reclaimed in later centuries, as mentioned above, while others now form highly valued outdoor recreational areas. Climate. The climate of the Netherlands is temperate, with gentle winters, cool summers, and rainfall in every season. Southerly and westerly winds predominate, and the sea moderates the climate through onshore winds and the effect of the Gulf Stream. The position of the country, between the area of high-pressure air masses centered on the Azores and the low-pressure regions centered on Iceland, makes the Netherlands an area of collision between warm and polar air masses, thus creating unsettled weather. Winds meet with little resistance over the flat country, though the hills in the south significantly diminish the velocity of the potent wind that prevails along the coast. On average, frost occurs 60 days per year. July temperatures average about 63 degrees Fahrenheit 17 degrees Celsius, and those of January average 35 degrees Fahrenheit 2 degrees Celsius. Annual rainfall averages about 31 inches, 790 millimeters, with only about 25 clear days per year. The average rainfall is highest in summer, August, and autumn and lowest in springtime. The country is known, not least through the magnificent landscapes of Dutch painters, for its heavy clouds, and on an average day 3/5 of the sky is clouded. Plant and animal life. Most wild Dutch plant species are of the Atlantic district within the Euro-Siberian phytogeographic region. Gradients of salt and winter temperature variations cause relatively minor zonal differences in both wild and garden plants from the coast to more continental regions. The effects of elevation are negligible. Vegetation from coastal sand dunes, muddy coastal areas, slightly brackish lakes, and river deltas is especially scarce in the surrounding countries. Lakes, marshes, peatland, woods, heaths, and agricultural areas determine the general floral species. Clay, peat, and sand are important soil factors for the inland vegetation regions. Animal life is relegated by region according to vegetation. Seabirds and other sea life, such as mollusks, are found especially in the muddy Waddenzee area and in the extreme southwest. Migrating birds pass in huge numbers through the Netherlands or remain for a summer or winter stay. Species of waterbirds and marsh and pasture birds are numerous. Larger mammals, such as roe deer, red deer, foxes, and badgers, are mostly restricted to nature reserves. Some species, such as boars, beavers, fallow deer, mouflons, and muskrats, have been introduced locally or reintroduced. Some reptiles and amphibians are endangered. Numerous species of river fish and river lobsters have become scarce because of water pollution. There is a diversity of brackish and freshwater animals inhabiting the many lakes, canals, and drainage ditches, but the vulnerable species of the nutritionally deficient waters have become rare. Nature reserves have been formed by governmental and private organizations. Well-known reserves include the Naardermeer of Amsterdam, the Hoge Veluwe National Park, and the Oostvaardersplassen in the center of the country. Some endangered species are protected by law. Ethnic groups. Popular belief holds that the Dutch are a mixture of Frisians, Saxons, and Franks. In fact, research has made plausible the contention that the autochthonous inhabitants of the region were a mixture of pre-Germanic and Germanic population groups who in the course of time had converged on the main deltaic region of Western Europe. There emerged from these groups in the 7th and 8th centuries some major polities based on certain ethnic and cultural unities that then came to be identified as Frisians, Saxons, and Franks. The Dutch Republic originated from medieval statelets, and its legal successor, the Kingdom of the Netherlands, has attracted countless immigrants through the centuries. A strong impetus was the principle of freedom of thought, which engendered the relative tolerance that developed in the 16th and 17th centuries. These sentiments were, and are, most manifest in the prosperous commercial and industrial centers in the western provinces, which attracted many members of persecuted religious or political minorities. Among these were Southern Lowlanders, French Huguenots, and Portuguese Jews, along with many people who sought to improve their economic situation, such as Germans and non-Iberian Jews. In the 20th century, immigrants from the former Dutch overseas colonies added to the influx. They included Indonesians and peoples from the Moluccas and from Suriname on the northeast coast of South America. In recent decades, however, as Muslims from Turkey and Morocco arrived in large numbers, Dutch embracement of diversity has been more tenuous. At the beginning of the 21st century, not only did a virulent anti-immigrant movement emerge, but also the government required that immigrants pass a test in their country of origin relating to Dutch language and culture before they were allowed to enter the Netherlands. Thank you for watching.